Hello and welcome to Soothing Pod Sleep Stories. My name is Chris, and tonight I will be your guide as we embark on a journey into the past. A journey that will take us into the lives of Vikings. We will learn about their day-to-day lives in their stunning remote villages, surrounded by evergreen hills and rolling meadows. Before we begin, however, let us take a moment to find peace and comfort in the place that we're in, here and now. Close your eyes and allow your body to sink into the comfortable surface of whatever you're laying on. Savor the feeling of your muscles relaxing more and more into a place of peaceful rest. Here and now, there are no expectations. There is no to-do list. By simply closing your eyes and listening to the sound of my voice as I guide you on this serene journey, you are already giving your body rest and rejuvenation. Anything else you are seeking will come in time. But for now, sink into the realization that you are already giving your body and mind great gift. And the gift of relaxation can be found around the globe. With your eyes still closed and your body releasing more and more tension, I'd like you to imagine yourself on the coast of Sweden. Behind you, mountains that seem to brush against the sky are draped in spools of soft green grass. The grass sways in the gentle coastal gust that pulses from the horizon, sweeping off of distant islands and lands that are waiting to be explored. At your feet, soft, rounded rocks and ancient sand glisten in the light of the sun. They have been worn by years and years of water. Water that is lapping at your feet now. The muted color of the rocks and sand only makes the deep blue of the ocean and the bright pop, pop, pop of the white sea foam it leaves behind more beautiful. You watch as the waves drift out to sea, retreating to their home, and then return to the shore, brushing the rocks and sand and painting them a darker hue. You watch the waves drift toward the horizon and return to the shore. As the waves drift out, you breathe in deeply with them, feeling the nourishing sea air fill your lungs. You hold that breath, savoring it and allowing it to calm your body. As the waves lap the shore once more, you exhale, feeling any and all tension leave your body. As the waves drift out again, you breathe deeply in sync with them, nourishing yourself. You hold that breath, as the waves mingle with the deep sea. Then slowly you begin to exhale, feeling serenity sweep over you. As the waves drift out again, you breathe in, breathe in, breathe in, and hold that breath before the waves return to the shore and you exhale with them, feeling the last breath leave your lungs as the cool water touches your feet. We will return to this peaceful, beautiful shore that is important to the Vikings' culture soon in our story. But now that we have taken the time to relax and find peace and comfort where we are here and now, let us journey into the Viking village to see the quaint houses they have created and the close-knit society that has turned their houses into homes. Viking villages were a far cry from the modern cities that dot our globe as glowing amber lights today. There were no streets lined with homes, no stores, no businesses. Instead, there were small collections of homes, with the largest in Scandinavia often only including around 15 homesteads. And yet, these homes provided everything that a family could possibly want. Each home was a homestead with plenty of animals, farmland that stretched to the horizon, and accommodations that made life, even in a time as undeveloped as this, rather cozy. Imagine for a moment that you're standing on the edge of a Viking village. To your left, the rugged Atlantic coastline seemingly laces through the dark water, stretching far into the distance until it practically touches the sun that is painting the sky orange and pink in the distance. To your right, the evergreen landscape that looks as though it has been cut from felt is peppered with homes, each one more unique than the last. Some of the homes are rather small, about the size of a room. Fragrant grey smoke billows from the chimneys, dancing as it drifts up and up and up into the morning sky. You take a deep breath of the air and are invigorated by the aroma of the wood smoke. It has a piney tinge to it, a tinge that you know can only be found in a place as wild and beautiful as this. The smaller homes look to be made from wood. Their roofs are thatched, some dotted with swathes of plants that have taken root in the straw, desperate to get closer to the sun for the few hours every day that it graces the land with its presence and paints it all in a hue of gold. There are some other houses, however, that are much larger. They are narrow, long homes that look as though they have been plucked out of a fairy tale. Their roofs and sides are blanketed in moss and grass, melting the homes into the vibrant landscape and becoming an extension of them. There is something magical about them, an aura that brings you a sense of peace and excitement. It is within one of these long homes that we will find the person we are joining today on a journey through Viking life. It is in one of these homes, a longhouse in the distance that is coated in moss, that Revna awakens the bright smile as she stretches her body and readies herself to begin the day. Tiny slivers of morning light leak through the ceiling above her, glistening in the air like golden drops of dew. Outside, she can just make out the sound of birds calling as they flit between the sparse fir trees that dot the landscape. She can picture the cardinals bounding through the sky, their flight pattern as joyful as the song that they sing out into the universe. Their bright red bodies are a splash of colour against the sea of sage, evergreen, and the pine of the landscape around them. They are enveloped in swathes of green, for the mountains that stretch to the sky, to the grass and moss swaying on the locals' roofs. Revna crawls out of her bed. In Viking homes, specifically long homes, the beds are simple plank beds pressed against the wall. During the day, they're used for sitting and conversing. At night, no space is wasted. Her bed is cozy, lined with blankets made of animal furs that keep her warm, even in the coldest of winter. But there is something else keeping her warm. In the center of the room, a long fireplace. A hearth crackles. The flames have diminished to warm amber embers by the morning, and Revna's first chore of the day is tending to the fire. She throws on more logs cut from the nearby forest and stokes the flames, encouraging the fire to grow more and more. There is scarcely any ventilation in the Viking homes. Above, a simple hole is cut in the ceiling for the smoke to escape and drift off into the orange sky. Regardless, the home itself is often brimming with the smell of the fire and the warmth of the smoke. It may sound unpleasant, but it was part of daily life for the Vikings, and Revna didn't mind at all. She loved the smell of the wood smoke, the embers crackling, the cedar and birch trees breaking down into nothing, leaving only that woody, dense aroma and warmth behind. The smell of smoke reminded her of home, of safety, of happiness. While the children and her husband, Leif, continued to sleep in the dim light of early morning, Revna sat by the hearth and prepared breakfast for the children. In summer, food was abundant for the Vikings. Each Viking home was actually a homestead, with enough animals and crops to support the family and community. During summer, there was plenty of food to go around. For the children, whose schedules were much easier, Revna prepared a bowl of porridge with some fruit on the side. Bilberries foraged from the landscape around the home provided a sweet, sour tinge to brighten their palate and encouraged them to have a good start to their day. Revna also slid a piece of homemade bread onto each of their plates. Bread was wildly important to Viking culture. Many more things could be farmed than most people would imagine in a climate so far north, but barley, oats, and rye were perhaps the most important staples of all. Revna nearly always had bread prepared for her family and for herself. On rare occasions, she and her husband would sneak a piece of bread slathered in fresh golden honey, the only sweetener Vikings had access to. For her and her husband's breakfast, referred to as dagmal, meaning day meal, Revna would prepare bowls of leftover stew from the previous night. Viking families thrived on stew. It nourished their bodies in the often unforgivable climate and filled the home with the warm aroma of meat, vegetables, and spices. Knowing they would need the strength for their work, Revna and Leif dove into the leftover soup, which was still bubbling over the hearth in the center of the house by morning. Dipping her crispy, plush rye bread into the stew was an experience Revna liked to savor. Afterwards, the Vikings would head out to do their work on the farm for the day, and Revna's family was no different. Like many cultures at the time, women's primary place of work was within the home. However, Vikings were more advanced and equal than other cultures. During harvest, women worked in the fields with the men, and when men were off sailing to distant lands, the fieldwork was left to the women. Milking the animals and tending to them was also Revna's job, and that job actually began in the home, because at the opposite end of the longhouse, the stables stood, keeping animals warm and safe during poor weather. Revna knelt down to milk the cows and sheep in her stable. She pet the sheep with affection, knowing the animals were providing so much for her family. The warmth of the sheep's wool brought Revna a sense of comfort and belonging. With the animals milked and put out into the field, Revna began to prepare food once more for the family. She churned the milk to create butter, ground the rye and barley, and baked bread for the next few days. The smell of baking bread always sent feelings of utter joy and excitement spiraling through her. There were few things better than the smell of freshly cooking bread on a peaceful summer day. After cooking and baking, Revna tended to clothes that needed mending. Surviving the elements on the coast of Sweden was no easy task, and the thick, quality clothes they wore provided much comfort. They used wool, fur, and leather to create most of their clothing. Many of their shoes were actually made from leather, providing them with some safety from the elements outside. But today, the elements were mild in the field. Leif looked up to the sky with a pleased sigh, pausing his work for a moment to let the sun wash over his face and body. Most of the work in the fields was up to the father of the house. In a time where no machinery was around to help, farming was even more labor-intensive than it is in modern day. Leif continued to drive his plough through the rich soil. The ploughs the Vikings used were called ards, a primitive type of plough that cut a trench through the soil, but did not turn the soil over like modern-day ploughs do. It was often made of a single wooden post that pointed down into the soil, slicing through it as animals dragged it along. Though it was tiring work, Leif found great purpose in it. He loved the invigorating aroma of the soil as it sprung from the earth. He loved knowing that he was working in unison with the land, while also providing for his family. As he planted seeds down along the line, he felt deep appreciation for every little seed that disappeared into the rich soil. It would grow to become food for his family, for his community. There would be tales told around the stew these vegetables were planted into. There would be loving looks cast over the bowls they resided in. There would be memories made in a few short weeks when Revna and Leif worked together to harvest the crops with their children. Viking farms were lush with fruit and produce, and Revna and Leif's was no different. They produced a variety of vegetables, turnips, peas, beans, onions, and cabbage. They grew fresh herbs to add fragrance and flavor to their dishes. Dill, mustard, thyme, horseradish, and parsley were all grown frequently on the farms. But it wasn't just on the farm where food could be found either. As Leif continued ploughing the fields of the farm, Revna and the kids emerged from the house and hurried by him with smiles on their faces. Each of them carried a simple wooden basket for foraging. Revna gave her adoring husband a peck on the cheek, telling him that they would be back shortly, hopefully with plenty of goodies for the family. Foraging was an important part of life for the Vikings. Though the landscape of Scandinavia may seem barren to many, that couldn't be further from the truth. In the summertime, the lush landscape was flooded with wild berries. After years of living in the village and having foraged the very same woods with her own parents as a child, Revna had a wonderful eye for where to find berries. She led her children alongside a quaint creek. The creek ran from the mountains in the far distance, mountains that seemed to effortlessly swoop up to the sky, plush and swaying like a spool of wool in the wind. The water of the creek was an otherworldly colour, as turquoise as the stone, bluer than the sky, almost as if droplets of the clear blue had dripped down, down, down into the water and painted it itself. Perhaps they didn't know it at the time, but the water was that colour blue from the glacial silt in the nearby mountains. The glaciers that carved the landscape into the beautiful peaks and valleys were the same that coloured their streams and rivers and lives with such a stunning array of colours. Revna closed her eyes for a brief moment as she soaked in the soundscape of the creek. She could hear it bubbling over smooth, ancient rocks and lazily winding around turns where the soil pushed back. Trees sprouted from the ground around her, providing a canopy that the bright sun filtered through, the rhythmic sound of the branches overhead swaying, the leaves dancing against one another, made it feel as though nature itself was serenading the family. At the very least, the birds certainly were. Cardinals breezed from tree to tree overhead, with each graceful swoop of their wing. Revna's children would giggle and clap with delight. The red of the cardinal's feathers was a splash of joy in a cool, relaxed atmosphere. As they reached a bend in the river, a bend Revna had visited many, many times before, she knelt beside her children with a smile. To the right of them, a flourishing strawberry bush resided. The berries were nearly as red as the feathers of the birds overhead. Revna and her children took their time plucking the ripe, beautiful berries from the plant. Even without biting into them, Revna could feel the sweetness of the berries sweep over her tongue. As they plucked the last few berries off the bush, Revna gave her patient children a nod. Everyone took a berry of their own into their mouths and savoured the taste of them, biting away until nothing remained but the long, wild stem of the strawberry. The taste of the untouched, ripe strawberries was always the most wonderful reward for a long day of work. With the strawberries in their basket, the family scoured the edges of the water and the forest for more plants to forage. And just as Revna predicted, there were plenty more to be found. Nettles, cresses, and lamb's quarters were peppered throughout the grass of the forest and the farmland surrounding it. Each vegetable, each leafy green, was vitally important to the family. They harvested them with a soft touch and compassion, grateful that the land was giving them such a glorious bounty. In the fields further from the forest, Revna and the children looked carefully for lingonberries and bilberries. Bilberries were one of Revna's absolute favorites. She knelt by the low-lying plants to see if she could spot any of the small blueberries against the thick green leaves. The blueberries were a welcome pop of colour. Delighted, Revna and her children got to work, plucking as many bilberries as they could from the plants. Bilberries were not only used for food, but for medicine as well. They could be dried and used year-round, which made them an important staple in households across Scandinavia. With the bilberries, strawberries, and leafy greens in their basket, there was one more stop to make. It was only a stop they made on special occasions when the time was right. And that day happened to be the perfect time. Revna led her children to the far edge of the village, where a grove of trees flourished next to yet another stream. Excited, the children skipped through the maze of trees, singing and joking with each other as they breathed in the fresh air and sunshine. When they arrived at the grove of cherry trees, the children's eyes lit up with awe and desire. Cherry trees grew often in the Viking territories, along with pear trees and apple trees, which were harvested in the autumn. Revna lifted her young children up so they could reach berries and harvest them, so they could feel proud of themselves and what they were bringing to the household. The bright red, ripe cherries looked too delicious to pass up. Revna offered each of her children one, telling them that there would be plenty more to have later, as long as they behaved. With everything gathered, Revna made it back to the house and set up the ingredients. There was much cooking to be done. Thankfully, the fires ran nearly all day, and the crackling flames assured Revna she had a perfect place to cook. She tossed parsley, dill, lamb, and some vegetables into a broth to make a large stew. She got to work making more bread, and, of course, some mead from honey. Mead was a part of daily Viking life, and was especially important on days like today, days when a banquet was to be held. Using honey and fruit, Revna set some more mead to ferment for the future, knowing that the feast tonight would greatly diminish their supply. For several hours, Revna hummed as she tended to the fire, cooked a brilliant stew, and made sure there was enough mead for the future. Her children played outside. Their laughter as they chased each other around and sang in the light of the setting sun brought Revna much peace. It wasn't long before people began arriving for the feast. As the largest house in the village, Revna and Leif's home was often the spot where people gathered for celebrations and banquets. It was Revna's absolute favorite time. The Vikings were all so busy on the farm, they rarely had time to chit-chat with one another, and feasts gave them time to just relax and connect. The feast also gave them time to enjoy food that was even richer, even more opulent than their daily meals. Platters of vegetables slathered in freshly made butter and herbs, stews full of lamb and vegetables, roast fish, and large plates overflowing with greens and nuts like hazelnuts and walnuts. The Vikings all happily tucked into the food, and of course, tucked into the mead Revna and her family had ready to go. Viking feasts lasted for quite some time. Many could last for as long as 12 days. In this case, however, it was a simple feast for a night, the halfway point of summer, where everyone needed a break from their field labor. For hours, Revna and her children and husband tucked into the food. They savored the taste of the cherries as they stained their lips and tongue. Their bellies felt full and content with the rich stews and roasted meats. It was a divine meal, the type of meal they often found themselves dreaming about, and soon after, the most important part of the night came. With full stomachs and softened hearts, the Vikings told tales over the crackling fire. They were, indeed, expert storytellers. As they went around sharing tales of their gods and ancestors, everyone fell silent to hang on to every word. They were deeply bonded in those moments, connected through their love of story and their people. When the night came to an end, Revna, her husband, and the children crawled into bed to get a few hours of shut-eye before starting the next workday. Revna found herself smiling as she sleepily pulled the covers up over her head. The warmth of the blanket reminded her of the warmth of the community, of her connection to them. She loved her life more than she ever could have imagined. There was food in their stomachs, a fire crackling in their hearth, and a peaceful life of farming in their future. Revna closed her eyes. Sleep came upon her like a slow, gentle wave. At first she felt the comfort of it. the serenity of it. And then she drifted away to her peaceful slumber. That night, she dreamt of nothing but frolicking through fields of berries, of feeling the sun on her face, of feeling the love of her family. Her bed cradled her as the dreams reminded her of her luck, of the beauty of her life, and she slept better than she had in years. I hope you have enjoyed this sleep story, and it has brought you a night of peaceful, restful sleep. Please join me again tomorrow night for another sleep story. Until then, sweet dreams.